there, and the clean that brush out and dump stuff into the baskets. Now, we've got a lot of sticks on the ground like we do right now. It will absolutely also harvest sticks and rocks and mud and dog poop and all sorts of other things, as well as harvesting pecans. Now, when I run the harvester, I run running these blades, and what it's supposed to do is it's supposed to clean out at least a large portion of the grass and other material, blow it out before it gets loaded up and harvested. It helps. It's not perfect. Now, you still go over the same place a couple of times, and you have to. You gotta go over the same places. Now, you see where I'm not going is out there, because that is completely soggy muddy right now. There are a bunch of pecans over there. But I'll have to wait till a little drier part of the year to get those. This thing does not handle mud. Not real good, not at all. Alrighty, now something else is that I'm gonna try it at a couple of different angles, because you can run over the same pecan 2 different ways, 3 different ways, 4 different ways, and maybe it'll pick it up, maybe it won't. But you hit it that one direction, the right way, the right time, and it'll get it. Alrighty. Let's see what we got. So, let's see what we got. It looks like it. I mean, ours is seeing a few harvest seasons. It's got a couple of cones broke on it. But it's running pretty good. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to empty the baskets out into our yard cart. Guess I should have emptied all that out first. This was used to take firewood in earlier today. Yeah. And we could. Normally I don't like to drive around with the baskets in the harvester while I'm moving from one location on the property to another, because it'll pick up a bunch of stones and the bunch of gravel in it. And okay, and it picks up a bunch of rocks in there, and then you gotta find something to do with the rocks. So I'm gonna pull the harvester. Now see, this is how this works here. This wheel just rolls around ground drive, and those baskets sit here. And say this was a pecan that was stuck in here. When it pulls it around, it hits these little combs right here and pushes it out into the basket.
Can you just put it there by the back porch or something?
Yeah, I can deliver it somewhere. That's not a problem. I'll come back up here and get the I'll come back up here and I'll get the cart there. Mother's gonna watch the cart so that it doesn't get abducted with our valuable harvest in it. Now you see that mess right there. The grass and the leaves and sticks and stuff. You know, some of it is real easy to get out, and some of it's a little more difficult. But it's all done by hand here. Working on some equipment to sort that stuff easier. The large part of the process is sorting the pecans from the rocks and sticks and grass and hulls and all the nonsense that gets picked up with it. Now, there have been times in the past when I was pulling this harvester behind the mower and had a rock pick up and hit me in the back of the head. Sometimes that happens. So me wearing my helmet here is not all entirely just for a GoPro and light holder. You know? And some of it is actually for protective equipment. So I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna turn it around. I'm gonna park it right over here on our main drag, our operation area, and we're gonna drop it here. So now my old bag and nut harvester here, I'm pretty proud of that. We got that not too long after we moved up here, when I realized that we were going to need some kind of equipment to harvest these pecans, because bending over and picking them up one at a time was not going to be an option. As you see how many pecan trees we have. Now, I'm not even going to try to pretend that we're going to get them all. And well, I haven't got a tree shaker, so it's kind of a long season because we've got to wait for them to fall out of the trees, and they don't all do that at one time. So some of them will fall out and then I'll go back. Some of them will fall out and I'll go back. And you just have to maintain an eye on the property to see what's going on, where exactly which nuts have fallen and which nuts haven't, and just keep an eye on it. Like I say, it's kind of a long season. Usually you start off a good year, you start off sometime around sometime in October, and pecan season can run all the way through February. Sometimes it's dependent on the weather, it's dependent on how much it rains, how cold it gets and when. And you see the holes up in the trees, and those holes, well, they break open, and then there's a little piece of fibrous like tissue that hangs on to the pecan. That's where the black color on the pecan, on the brown nut comes from, is that little fibrous stuff. Can't remember what it's called, but after a while that eventually it comes loose and it falls out. That's a process through wind and birds and the decomposition of those fibers. And some nuts do it better than others. Some years, some trees, they fall free easier. Just, it depends. It's like those pants that Joe Biden wears. It depends. Okay, now, I'm not even sure if the battery's still up. Did the screen come on? Okay, that means it's not dead. Okay. There. Alrighty. So, park it back where you've been parking it. I'll put this in the shop. Yeah, well, we gotta go. Whoever's got to go out and put everybody in for the night. Either way, it's not going to rain tonight, is it?
Not supposed to.
Is it going to rain tomorrow?
Not supposed to.
Okay, because I'm just wondering about this.
You can,
It's supposed to rain this weekend, but not tomorrow, right? We'll just have to get a red tub and load it into it.
that's fine.
I mean, we don't have to. If we don't have to do it tonight, we don't have to do it tonight. If we have to do it tonight, we have to do it tonight. Do you want me to park this at the kitchen?
You can park it at the kitchen. If you park at the kitchen, you probably just take a tub.
Yeah, exactly. I'll back it up to the kitchen porch and load it into a tub there.
Yeah, a separate tub.
Yeah, a separate tub that hasn't been sorted. Yeah. Yeah. A little harvester. It works pretty good for, you know, for the price. I think that's the biggest one that Bag Nut makes. It's a 4-footer. I haven't looked into it in several years. I probably should contact them. You know, for the price, I mean, for somebody that's got a small property like this, where they've got, you know, 10 or 12 pecan trees maybe, or 4 or 5 pecan trees. Now you see that there's, on mine, oh, it's not, that's right, I dropped it off. On mine, it's got a bar that goes across the back, and it's got one that I'm pulling it with. Well, the one that goes across the back that's got the rubber handle on it, that is so you can push it. The one I'm pulling it with is to pull behind the mower like this. I decided to go ahead and get both, because that way, if you're in a small area, or you don't have gas for your mower, something happens or zombie apocalypse, you can still push it around, you know. You know, so you have the option of doing that either way. They make smaller ones too. That's the biggest one that I think that's still the biggest one they make. They make some that are just 2 feet wide, that are like 1 brush wide. You got 1 basket, and they've got smaller ones than that. And they also make them that will pick up other size nuts, and they actually sell those things to Department of Homeland Security and the military, to also with different brush sizes, to pick up shell casings at the shooting ranges. And I think they also sell them for golf balls as well. So if you have a golf course, you can get one of those that you can either pull behind a mower like this, or you can push it by hand, and you can pick up golf balls off of a driving range or whatever. So it's a pretty neat little device. It has a lot of different uses, you know, with the appropriate brush, and it's a good company, an American company out of Florida. I think they're still manufacturing in the United States. I say I need to call Bag of Nut and talk to them and see if I might need to get some parts for mine. It's several years old, and they've gone through multiple iterations over probably 20 or 30 years, and you know, for somebody that can't afford to go out, I mean, there's a company called Savage that makes all kinds of pecan equipment, and from what I've seen, that stuff works like real good. I mean, they make the high-end, hot lick, like professional equipment, you know, that does nothing but harvest pecans and do it right every time. Now, I can't afford to buy Savage equipment. I can't afford to, I mean, the tree shakers and the big, you know, self-propelled equipment that sweeps them up, and the sorters and all that. They make all kinds of really neat equipment, but there's just no way I can afford anything like that. That's why I went with Bag of Nut. It's not because it's the best solution, but it's the best solution for the price, and it works good. I mean, I don't think that Bag of Nut, you know, has any sort of intention on trying to compete with Savage, you know, because it's not the same thing. But for somebody that's got some pecan trees, some yard pecan trees, or a small property like I have, it's a difference between doing it and not doing it. Sometimes you gotta choke it, and sometimes you have to not choke it. Right there, that's on the top there, that's what I was talking about. That's the handle you can push it with, and then here you've got the other one that you pull it with. And all this comes apart in pieces with just quarter 20 hardware, quarter 20 SAE hardware, bolts and nuts and everything. And those, of course, there's little clips there. Probably, I don't know. They probably got those off of something. And then just this bent tube frame here. I believe that might be EMT, but I'm not certain on that. I think it's 3/4 and 1 inch EMT right there. But they've got the dies and everything made up to bend it with. You know, I wouldn't even try to beat them out of $1 on that. I think that's what that is, but it might be an aluminum tubing instead of. I'm not sure. I'm not entirely sure. I think it might be an aluminum tubing, not EMT. Probably, yeah, actually I think it is aluminum. But be right there. But you know, I went ahead and got the optional. I'll be right there. I got the optional extra of being able to pull it and push it. You can get it one way or the other, or you can pay extra to get both. Anyhow. Sometimes you gotta choke it. These little tubs like this, lick tubs, cattle lick tubs. We got a lot of cattle ranchers around here, and they put these out in the winter time for their cows to eat molasses. Some people like to feed their cows candy. Alright, that's what I was looking for. Huh? Well, I was trying to set it in there. I missed, I guess. Okay. Sometimes you can cheat. That's easy right off the top. Okay, so and this will be hours of enjoyment right here. Depending on what you're into. This is the kind of thing that it would be nice to have about 12 little kids to help you. Everything here that I'm doing, something that they could do, they want to totally be helping. I had an African goose, a big male African goose. He's the one that's in the picture for the channel there, standing next to a water tank. And you wouldn't believe it, I was sorting pecans, and that goose decided he wanted to help me. He was like a little five-year-old kid, except you didn't have any hands, you just had a mouthful of needle sharp teeth. There you go. And everything I did around here, he would try to help me. I'd be working on plumbing, elbow deep in cold, muddy water, completely covered in it. He thought that he needed to come up there and try to help me. Of course, the way he tried to help me was by trying to help me with his needle sharp little teeth, which I consider not helping. Yep. These lights right here, those are just a real help. They certainly are. They're you can get those on Amazon for about $6 a piece, because that's what they used to be. And motion sensor, and you can set them to either motion sensor to come on whenever it gets dark and stay on, or a couple different settings. I like to just stick them on everything around here, around the sides of the buildings. That way at night, whenever I'm out here operating like an operator, even if I don't have my helmet light on, I can walk around and be able to see what's going on. Or I can ride the mower around the edges of the buildings. And even without a headlamp, I can see what's going on. So it's really not all that late. It just looks like it's dark. It's magnified a lot on the GoPro, I've noticed. I'm not sure if the light is helping with that or hurting that. I'm still trying to get night settings worked out, as I'm sure you could tell the other day. But you know, it looks like it's the middle of the night. But it's just now getting dark, and just now starting to get dark, and saw that. Now, see, this is what they in the industry could call a stick tight. Not as bad as can be. I mean, some of them are just, you know, throwaway items. But, now, just get up here on the mower and see what I found right there. See, I just reached down on the ground and I found 3 pecans right there. They are kind of all over the place.
I'm separating these pecans. These are some good ones here. If they're broken like this, they're not good for people, but we could put them out for our chickens to eat this out of them, the pecan out of it. And you're going to remove any trash that's in there and any holes that are broken. See, these are not good, but they're good for the animals. And then you can even lay them, say, on the driveway, run over them with the tires or whatever, and it'll crack it more, so they can come and they'll pick out all the little pecan pieces out of it. The ones like this that have this whole part on it, that's called a stick tight. So sometimes you can get them off fairly easy and the pecan will still be good. Other times, if they're real hard to get off, just throw it away because it's not worth fooling with, and they're probably not going to be good anyway if they're like completely enclosed and so forth. Like that one, it's just it's not developed enough, so the pecan in there is not going to be good, and there's no reason to try to pry that off. It's just ridiculous. So okay. So these are the pecans after the harvester has gone out, either the hand harvester or the pull behind harvester has been used to go out and pick them up, and then it brought in here and dumped. So then you go through these to get out the bad parts that are left, or the ones that don't look good, or they're cracked or anything like that. So you're trying to get the ones that still are whole and still look pretty good. Some of these look a little bit muddy this year because we've had so much rain that we're having to get out in between the rains and the mud, and so there's not that many opportunities to go out and harvest pecans right now. And they're telling us we're going to have a warmer and wetter winter probably because of the El Nino that's in the United States this year. Natural thing that happens with weather, because weather's always changing. But this can be kind of therapeutic to just sit and go through your pecans. Now see, that one came out fine. After, it wasn't that hard. Now that's a bad one there, so it's already been cracked, laying out on the ground for a while. And so that happens. Another thing is, this time of the year we've got lots of crows coming around. They like to get the pecans to eat them, but in the process, they'll land on the pecan trees and shake the limbs and the pecans, and so that in a way helps because it knocks the pecans off and puts more on the ground to pick up. At the same time, they're eating a lot of them. So see, there's one that's bad. If they're real dark like that, sometimes I just throw those away because a lot of times they're not as good if they're real dark. So we're going to show you some other barrels of them that we've already harvested and sorted a few days ago, so you can see like some full tubs of them over there. The ones that have gone through already, and we'll accumulate pecans until we have enough to take somewhere to a professional cracker to crack the pecans, and then you get them back with some of the shell still in there in pieces and pecan pieces, and then at that point then you go through them and separate the pecan meat out of it, the good part of the pecan, and you'll get some pecan halves and then you'll get some pecan pieces, and they all taste the same. But if you're making something fancy, like you want to make a pecan pie, or you want to make what I call candied pecan halves, where you use sugar and some seasoning and boil the pecans down with that in it, and then slowly bake them in the oven after you do that. They're really good. But they look a lot, you want those to look nice and have the nice pecan halves to do those with. But most of the things that you make in salads or whatever, you can just use it, or muffins or anything like that. The pecan pieces are just as good to use for that. I use pecans in just about everything, since we have pecans where they're normally, expensive at the store for just a little tiny package. If you have your own pecans, they're really a great source of food source. And I put them in things like tuna fish, for tuna fish sandwiches, tuna fish salad. On those, you chop them up some, and then you put, in your tuna fish, put those, and apple and onion and celery and boiled eggs from our farm, and all kinds of things. You could put in your tuna salad and make it fancy, and so your pecans just add a little something to it for a different flavor. I took some pecans over to my neighbor earlier, a little while ago, and she likes to have some for Christmas baking. And I told her, I said, well, we're slow this year in picking up the pecans because the weather's been wet, and we'll get out there, and about the time we get out there, it rains again, so then we shut down again. And I said, I don't have any that have already been cracked or shelled or anything like that, but would you like some whole? And she said yes. She didn't have any problem. She would crack them and shell them herself, and I'm sure she will probably use some to make a pecan pie or something like that in the next few days for Christmas. So I think she was glad to get them. We have good neighbors. We try to check on each other, and if we see something, we call our neighbor, tell them, hey, have you noticed this or that? And we trade stuff back and forth. If she gets, some bread she doesn't need or want, or somebody gives her something she doesn't want, and she asks me if I want it, and if I have something extra over here, then I ask them if they want it. And so, and then they also raise chickens and geese and ducks and all that kind of thing over at their house across the street. So, everybody's trying to be a little self-sufficient out here on their own. And it's enjoyable too, just like this. I mean, it's some people might not enjoy it, but I enjoy doing, I guess you could say in some ways, a monotonous task or repetitive task or whatever. It doesn't bother me. It's kind of relaxing to sit here and just go through these, or you can even do it while if you want to watch TV or something on the internet, you can do that at the same time, or just sit at a table visiting with other people while you go through your cons. It makes it go faster, and or if you just want to do it by yourself, quiet, it's kind of rewarding knowing that, hey, these came off of some of these pecan trees that we have on this property are around 120 years old, and so some of those have gotten to where they're not producing as much because they are really old. And then we have some pecan trees that we planted a year or two after we moved here. So I think 6 of those, so it takes a while for pecan trees to get started and producing, but one of the 6 had a first few little 3 pecans or so on it this year. I mean, we didn't harvest them, but we could see where they had with that one tree. So this next year, we're hoping that maybe all 6 of them will have a few pecans, and then at some point they'll start producing. And the type of pecans those are is called desirables. So there's supposed to be some really nice, what they call paper shell pecans, which most of ours are. They're the bigger pecans. We do have some native pecans, so they're very much smaller than these. And so we normally don't get those cracked for ourselves, but we do sell some of them. And actually, as far as a lot of people like those for baking and all, because they have a higher fat content, oil content on them, and so they are good for baking. And then they have a really good flavor. It's and doing it yourself, it would be pretty tedious to go through all of those and render the pecans out of them. But normally our pecans start falling off the trees usually around Thanksgiving time, and as far as major dropping off, and that are ready to harvest. And then some will fall off, and then a few weeks later more will fall off, and you really don't get them dropping pecans too much until after you've had a freeze, and then that kind of triggers them, and depending on the year and all. So, but I mean, they could still be dropping pecans in January, maybe even February here. So it's a kind of a continuing thing for a while. But we definitely have been told that our pecans are very good tasting pecans. Here, because the bowl's way over there. So.
Okay, here it's filming.
Okay. Well, we're sitting here filming our pecans. We had taken some of our whole pecans into town, about 30 miles from here, to where they have a good place to get the pecans cracked. So basically they crack the pecans open and then blow off as much of the shells as possible. And so then you come back and then you have pecans that have been cracked open. You have some that come back as whole halves or near halves, and then you have some that come back in pieces. So then we separate. We celebrate too that we got it done, but we separate out and the pieces from the halves, and then some of them that don't look good, that are too dark or just don't look like they're up to par for the best pecans, we throw them in with the shells and scraps, and then those will become chicken food because the chickens love to go in and pick out the pecan pieces out of that. So none of it goes to waste. None of it at all goes to waste. And that's another thing to try to be self-sustaining as much as possible, is that you are providing your chickens with feed, and I guess the guineas like them too. And so you get to separate. These would be some of the pieces that we saved, which the pieces taste just as good as the whole ones. They're just not quite as pretty. The pecans that we sell to people, we weigh them out. These are 1 pound bags, and these are the pecan halves, the whole pecan halves that we sell to people. And we've already had people coming by wanting pecans, and we just didn't have them ready yet, but now we will. Start fresh with it. This is down to kind of the bottom of the last bag. When you get them back, we take them in big crates, like crates that hold about 50 pounds of the whole pecans, and then after they run them through that, you get your pecans back. Of course, less weight because some of the shells have been blown out of them, and then you get those back in like paper bags like this. So we got back, I think, was it 9 bags?
9 bags.
9 bags of these back.
Took in 200 and some.
We took in about 230 pounds of pecans,
Yeah.
whole pecans, and then we got back about 9 bags this size back. And I don't know how much each one of these weighs. What would you say, about 20 pounds or so?
Probably less than that.
15 pounds or so. And then when you open those up, then you'll have more pecans like these, and usually the ones on top seem like they have the most of the whole pecans in them sometimes, and then you get more of the pieces when you get towards the bottom of the bag. I guess they kind of sift through, but anyway, they're all really good. Of course, this is a place where pecans grow well, and we're proud of the pecans we get. Most of our pecans are like these bigger pecans, which they call the paper shell pecans. We also get some that are the native pecans, which are a lot smaller pecan, and we really don't fool with those as far as separating and trying to sell any of those or keep those. Sometimes we do sell those whole to a buyer, and then those are some places really find those desirable because the natives actually have more oil content in general than the bigger ones, and are really desirable for baking, where they have the facilities to separate them out really well and all that. We sell those some years. This year they weren't paying very much for those so far, and we didn't have that many of the natives that we had to get sold, so they don't go up on the price. We may just keep those and throw them out on the driveway when we need some chicken feed, when we're out of these, and then as they get run over, they crack them open, and the chickens will run out there and eat that for feed, and they love them. So there's a way to use your natives if you can't get a really good price for them. You can just say, well, I'll just keep those because feed for chickens is really high right now. So you might as well use what you have if you got it and it's nutritious and they have fun getting it and everything else. So I'm gonna quit talking for a little bit. Did you film that where you got a big new pile of them out? Is it getting that?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, you can see you dump some out at a time, and you'll notice like on these you can quickly go in and pick up a lot of the bigger ones right off the top when you dump something out. You want to make sure that you don't have the backs stick on them. Sometimes you'll have a piece on the back you have to take off, but you can really just go through. This is the fun part, where you've got a bunch that you just dumped out on top, and you can just go through and quickly separate them. And of course, everything is easier that way, and you can get a bunch of it quickly and at a time. If there's any that don't look quite as good, I'll save them for some of the ones we're going to keep and put them in with that.
Are those pieces?
These are pieces here, yeah. These are whole ones, so yeah. pieces, and then ones that we don't want to bag for sale. So, and you try to get all the little pieces of shells out. You want to. That's why I'm wearing my glasses, so that I can get the pieces out of them, the shell pieces out of them. So you see that, you'll see some little pieces that just stick to those sometimes, so you just want to get those out of it too, because you want to have it as clean as possible. And the best way I can tell to do it is to just look it all over really.
The part on the back there, that's really bitter. It's a piece that goes between the halves. I want to make sure to get that out. And then right here, sometimes collect the, well, when they're in the shell, there are little pieces of stuff in these right here, and you want to make sure that's clean.
But I mean, to me, it's just kind of enjoyable sitting here doing. Some people might think it's monotonous or tedious work, and I guess you could think of that in a way, but to me, I mean, we're sitting here, we're looking out the big kitchen window towards the rest of the property, and the sun's out. It's a beautiful day, and well, it's a little cool. It's muddy outside, so what better day could you have to sit here and sort through pecans? And then if you want to have your internet or TV or music or whatever going in the background, if you want to do that, you can do it, or you can just sit here and it's quiet and you can talk, or if you have other people around, you can invite them to maybe help you, and then give them a few pecans to take home with them for doing it and helping you. And you can talk about all kinds of things and how to solve all the problems of the world. Just different things. Or talk about your animals, or talk about what your plans are coming up next, or just all kinds of stuff. Which I don't think people talk enough anymore. They're too busy on their cell phones or whatever, which we really don't do that. We really don't care anything about being on the cell phones all the time, and we really don't hardly use the cell phone. So, but that's just us. But people can do whatever they want to do. But you can't really sort pecans and play with a cell phone at the same time. So that would be a good thing for people to do if they're trying to quit using their cell phone so much, is get some pecans and go through and separate pecans, and then you'll keep your little fingers busy, and you'll be doing something industrious and creative and prosperous all at the same time. And you'll be adding to your food supply that you have, because, oh, and after we get these pecans into bags, we put them in the freezer. They're all sealed up tight, and then we freeze them, and they'll stay good for years in your freezer. So that's the best way to keep them. You don't want to just put them on a shelf somewhere and leave them for years, or even if you have them in the whole shells, a good way to put them in your refrigerator, but they're going to take up quite a bit of space if you leave them like that. So once you get them shelled and separated all out and into your bags and sealed up, these are sealed, and then we'll go back and seal them with heat across the top to where they're sealed again, and these are open and you can reuse and reseal. But just keep them in the freezer, and then just take out as what you need, and let them, whatever you take out, let them thaw out for a little bit and warm up, and then they're just like brand new. So that's the best way to do it, and you can keep them for years that way. Pecans are really nutritious for you. They have one of the main nutrients they have in it is minerals, I guess you'd say, is manganese.
We've got a lot of zinc. We've got all kinds of stuff. They're very nutritious.
Manganese is one of the minerals that you don't always get. And I'm not saying magnesium, I'm saying manganese. It's different. They probably have magnesium too, but manganese.
Yeah, they have both.
They have both, but it's one of the harder ones to get naturally. And
pecans are also something that are ready during the winter time. And they have a lot of they're a good calorie source during the winter time. So if you're planting trees to for food security purposes, pecan trees can be a good one, because they will grow in your area. They won't grow everywhere. They grow a lot of places though. But if they since they're ready during the winter time, they are a good food security food source, because there are not a lot of high calorie crops that are available during the winter time. For instance, it's hard to grow potatoes during the winter time for calories, because, well, a lot of places it's very cold and potatoes will die. Like here, we can't. Now you can overwinter potatoes in the ground here. You can, but they aren't ready during the winter time normally.
And another thing to keep in mind on pecans is pecan trees don't necessarily produce every year. More commonly, you'll get a good crop maybe once every 3 years. And then you may get, one year you may have some trees that produce, but not others, and then it may switch the next year or whatever. And depending on, in the spring when they are blooming, if you get a late frost, that could kill your pecan crop or a lot of it. Or
if you get a lot of rain.
If you get too much rain or not enough rain, you've got problems. So don't count on having pecans every year once your trees start producing. And it does take several years for them to start producing if you plant small trees. So that's another thing to think about. So when you do get a good harvest, like this year we got a pretty good harvest. We had a little trouble gathering them because it rained so much that we couldn't get out some in the mud. So if you're saving some for yourself, you want to be sure to save a lot for yourself, because you may not get pecans for a few years again. So you want to be sure to keep back more than you need, and then you can always sell them. Like I said, they stay good, and so you can always sell them later on if you get another crop in. This year we kept using our pecans, and we're just down to about our last pecans when we started getting pecans again. And I think it had been like this is the third year since we had 2 years in between where we didn't get very many pecans. So like I said, you want to plan ahead if you're saving those for yourself. And keep a lot. Don't think you'll get the same thing every year. Now, we have a lot of our trees are getting really old, like well over 100 years old, like 110, 120-year-old trees. Most of our big trees. We have planted 6 new ones about 7 years ago, I guess now, and we just had 2 or 3 little pecans on one tree this year for the first time. And so we're hoping they start having pecans on them and growing a lot faster now. So eventually those 6 trees will probably be our main producers here. And they're a newer variety of trees and called desirables.
Well, desirable is actually a pretty old variety, but new compared to the Stewarts.
New compared to what was here. Most of the trees we have on the property that were like 115, 120 years old, they were Stewarts, which back in the day, at that time, that was a new the new going thing back then to plant those. And then we have a few different, 2 or 3 different trees that have Indian names, like they're named for different Indians in Oklahoma or different places. And then we probably have a couple of trees we're not sure what name.
Oh, there's some out here that are just wild trees.
And then we have some that are just the native pecans that they really come up and do well on their own with very little attention. So they're good to have. And if nothing else too, they help feed the wild animals that are around here. We have a lot of deer, and of course here really plagued this time of the year. At the end of the season, the crows will come by and get a lot of them, but they're usually getting them after you've gotten. Sometimes you have to fight for them to get them up before they get them, but then this time of the year they're coming like more or less like scavengers, because it's really muddy and we can't get out there, so they're gathering some up. And then we have a few little squirrels that come and get pecans, but I don't really worry about the squirrels getting them, because you would think we'd be bombarded more with squirrels than what we are, but we're really not. We're in the country, so I guess there's enough space and enough other places for them to gather acorns from the oak trees and things like that. So
enough hogs to keep them under control.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I don't bother the squirrels. I mean, if they eat some of the pecans we have, then I'm not worried about it. It's
Yeah.
not like we're trying to get every last one of them.
yeah, I mean, we probably gather a small percentage of what's really all out there, because of what you can get to and what you can't get to, and when you can get to it. But it's kind of like we share with the animals, and our animals, the wild animals, and
As long as we have all that we need, and maybe we sell some to
people that want some. We give some away to our neighbors that live across the street from us. A few of our neighbors, we usually just take them some and just give them to them, and they appreciate it.
Some years we've actually made a little bit of money on pecans, but not like getting rich or anything. Maybe enough to pay for the chicken feed that winter or something, or
Yeah, it's good to have, and it's I don't know. You kind of take pride in knowing that you're harvesting from some of your food from trees that somebody planted well over 100 years ago, and those people are long gone by now.
That's something to remember when you're developing a property. Is you want to plant trees as soon as possible, and you want to plant the ones that are going to take the longest to start producing as soon as possible, if you can. You might have things like apple trees or peach trees or pear trees or something that you plant right away too, but you definitely want to get your nut trees that are going to take years before they start bearing. You want to get those in as soon as you can, because that will take the longest to and most people don't do it that way. Most people they go in and they start worrying about annual garden crops and that sort of thing first, because that's the easiest to get going, or they think it's the easiest to get going. It's the thing that you see the most rapid return on. And if you're in a survival situation where you've got to do that, that's one thing. But if you have some time that you can devote to planting trees early on, in the long run, you'll end up getting the most reward out of your trees. Your tree crops are going to have the most return for the amount of effort put in.
And like on this property, when we got this place about 9 years ago, and I'm the grandmom in this situation, or the mom, because Jeff is my son that's talking, and I'm a widow, and so, in fact, I'm going to be 71 tomorrow. But anyway, when we bought this place, well, we realized most of these pecan trees are really, really old, and so they might be more towards the end of their nut-bearing life. Although they're still beautiful trees, we went ahead and planted 6 new ones, and then some other wild ones are coming up, because by the time maybe these quit producing hardly anything at all, these older ones, then the new ones will take over and be producing a lot, and probably they will produce more than this, probably about 70 trees that we have that are the older trees. So it's good to think ahead, just because you have some that are producing. Don't count on those forever if they're older, and or some different ones can have different problems over the years. So you want to think ahead. So like you want to plant some more to replace the ones you already have, and they'll be ready by that time.
We also want to have a variety of crops too on your property. If you have everything in one particular thing, like if you only have pecan trees, then you're susceptible to, if you have a bad year for pecans, then you don't have anything. Potentially you don't have any crop. And then if you have, a pest that kills all your pecan trees, then that's everything. Whereas if you have pecan trees and apple trees and pear trees and peaches and plums and all kinds of different fruits, stone fruits and malice, apples and your pear trees, all kinds of different sorts of fruit that are not necessarily susceptible to the same pests and diseases. That's good. You have diversity of produce, and also your apples and pears are going to bear at a different time than your pecans are. There's going to be some overlap into the in that.
And this morning we had some of our plum preserves or jelly that we made. I guess this last year, about a year and a half ago, because our plum trees started being some of the first ones to produce fruit, and I guess we planted those about 8 years ago, and so we had or 8 or 8.5 years ago, I guess, when we planted those, which we actually were some of the first trees that we planted, and so with them, they've been producing plums, and we've had peaches producing along with the plums too for several, I guess, pretty good for about 3 years now.
Yeah.
So we've been able to make preserves or jellies out of them. We make blackberry jelly. Blackberry is actually my favorite. We actually planted the blackberries. Were one of the very first things that we planted when we got this place. We planted them about 10 or 11, I guess about 10 months after we moved here.
Yeah.
And they were one of the very first things that we planted, and then along with the peach and a few of the peach and plum trees. So got those started right away, and so it's just been working on things, and even the fruit trees, they're just now getting to where they've got some good size to them and producing more fruit, and so we're really proud of those. And somebody told us that peaches wouldn't grow here, but we've had peaches growing here, and so we're happy with those.
Well, they're problematic here, which I have to agree with.
But the plum trees do really well here, and pretty easy to grow. And
Plums seem to do very well, and I've actually considered grafting peaches onto plums to see if that would work in our area, see if that would solve some of my problems with peaches. I haven't done it yet. I need to. But another thing to remember is is that if you plant a few trees this year, I mean, it's better to go ahead and plant a few trees every year than to go out and try to plant everything in one year.
That way you can keep them watered in the summer when you need water, or take care of them better. And so if you have something come in like really sub-zero temperatures that are unusual, it kills some things, and you don't lose a whole lot at one time, you know, or whatever it is that, or, you know, here one of our main problems is in the summer, all the rain usually shuts off about June when you really need it, when it starts getting hot. And it's a major chore to try to keep things watered for about 3 months. So, and then you got high water bills too. So, if you can get a few at a time started and going good, for us works out the best. And because it does take a lot of attention to keep them watered when you don't get some rain that you need when it's hot. And here it's either like this time of the year, sometimes we're getting way more water than what we really need from rain. But then unless we get a really unusual summer, the water shuts off, and you've got to do a lot of hauling hoses or setting up watering systems or whatever to keep your trees and bushes alive. So, and it takes a lot of attention. You can't just forget about it. You know, if you forget about it for an extra day or two too long, you've got a dead tree. And you've got a lot of money wasted if you don't get it taken care of.
And also with planting trees, I mean, you can do it a couple of different ways. You can either buy really large, expensive trees that will produce more quickly. But you're gonna have to buy fewer of those. So say, like in our case, we bought 3 Satsuma plums one year, and we put those in. And believe it or not, that first year, that first year, one of them actually bloomed and gave us fruit, and did really well. I'm really surprised. And some of the jam that the jelly that we have is still from that first tree. Or you can go the other route where you get a bunch of cheaper trees and plant them. Like a couple of years I got Antonovka rootstocks. Now a lot of people would take those Antonovka rootstocks and they would top work those with other varieties of apple tree to get several different kinds of fruit or whatever. But I just grew them. I just planted rootstocks and to grow Antonovkas from those, and they're perfectly good apple. They're a green apple that comes from Russia. That is supposed to be a very good eating apple, or pie, or for pies, or even cider. I can later go back and top work them and put different cyan wood on them and have a bunch of different varieties if I want, but I mainly just got a bunch of rootstocks, put them in the ground, and let them start growing. I did that a couple of years in a row, and eventually I'm going to have probably a couple of, what do you think, at least 2 dozen
Probably.
apple trees out there.
If you hear the rooster crowing, he's outside, just a little ways outside. He's not in the house. He's our yard rooster. We have one rooster that lives up here around the house, and he's out. This is a time of the day, or like middle of the day, that he likes to crow. And so if you hear a rooster crowing, he is outside, just outside of where we're at in the kitchen. But we don't let the chickens in the house. No, we don't do that. But we don't have any indoor pets. We don't have dogs or cats or anything like that in here. We have enough of the neighbors' dogs and cats that try to come over here and give us some grief, but they couldn't even go there today. But So, but yeah, we have plenty of guineas and chickens and geese and ducks and all of that. So if you hear them, that they do like to stay around where we're at, and they watch for us, and they like to hear what's going on. We even have a couple of chickens that get up on this little chest outside on a different part of the house, and where they can see in the living room window. And sometimes they'll be watching the TV screen or watching us. We'll look up and they'll be sitting there looking through the window at us. So it's kind of comical, but they're the one. And we have one or two of the chickens that have decided that at night they just want to live there on the carport, and they don't want to live with the rest of the chickens. But so far they've survived pretty well, just staying up there close to the house and up there, and I don't know, they just want their own space there. So we have our animals are, we usually have a few animals that just turn out to be kind of special little animals that go beyond the normal animal, and have their own little personalities and stuff.
Like Jack.
Yeah.
Jack is the avatar for the channel. He's the goose on the picture for the channel, and
He was the original goose.
the original goose.
Original male goose.
And take a gander, please.
Yeah, he's the original gander. I'm sorry. He's the original gander. I'm sorry. He was a male, but I should say gander. Anyway.
But yeah, he was something else. That's a picture of him standing next to a water outside, right off the kitchen porch I took of him. And he just
I don't think there'll ever be another Jack.
There will not, thank goodness.
Be another Jack. He had his good points and his bad points, but he had his own personality for sure.